G'day, my name is Elliot Waters and you're listening to the Dysregulated podcast. As always, thank you for tuning in. Okay, I got home from therapy. I've just rushed home because I want to tell you all about it, and that's exactly what I'm going to do here. There's been a few therapy sessions I've gone to where I haven't done this reflection episode like I planned. So I'm not quite sure where we're up to when it comes to me telling the therapy sort of story. So I'm going to do a bit of an overview today, a bit more of an overview of what we're trying to achieve and how we're doing it. And then in the next episodes, I'll try and back this one up pretty quickly. I'll go into some more of the specifics around the memories, experiences, etc., and how that affects me today, because affect me, they do. So there's sort of there's two goals out of therapy. Like, obviously there's the goal to have peace of mind and, and feel good about, there's the emotional goal, all about feeling good about myself and life, and that I am able to conduct myself in a way that about happy times, I suppose, and meaning and all that sort of stuff. There's that real emotional sort of view of this that is being shifted. So instead of this idea of being incompetent, defective, all that stuff, something's wrong with me, I'm different. It's all about challenging those thoughts and coming up with a bit better picture of the self. So that's sort of the emotional side of things. And there's the cognitive side, which is how it is the actual thoughts that go around those feelings there. But then, and this is what I want to talk about more today, then there's the real sort of goals. And there's two functional outcomes that I think we're aiming for, or at least I am, in therapy. Two big ones. One is a new job, work that is meaningful, and that's got a lot to do with that thought about being incompetent and stuff. And the second one is to get a partner, so relationships. So there's two main prongs, which is work and relationships, essentially. And what underpins all is this belief that I'm not good enough, not able, and therefore give up trying altogether. And that's the sort of thought that we're trying to avoid. So I had the choice. More important, or what was more pertinent at the time, this whole new job meaningful thing, or getting in a position where the relationship thing could happen. And I decided, much deliberation, I decided that it was the work that needed to be looked at first, because I'm poor. So because money funds everything, and I'm hoping the money, if I get a new job that's meaningful, that in itself will feel so much better. But then the proceeds of that will then be re-fed into therapy, and then how the relationship part, I suppose, can be focused upon adequately. Because going once a week is not, that's for sure, it is not cheap at all. And work is an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing, whereas the relationship stuff's more of it in the back of the mind, able to put aside for now, because I'm not in a relationship. So it's not so, if I was in a relationship and there were some BPD patterns developing again, I would definitely say, all right, we need to focus on the relationship sort of first. But because I'm single and I'm, managing that as well as I can, and I think quite rightly decided that we'll look at the workplace stuff first. So that's where we're at. And there's two ways in which I'm doing this. So both of those concepts or outcomes, new job and new partner, they're all tied to this lying feeling of inadequacy. And that's what really is the heart of this whole thing, is that, this poor self-esteem. It's all about all of this is real. If I had a stronger self-esteem, this stuff would be happening. I'd be fine. It's all to do with these clear cognitions of being, I'm defective, I'm incompetent, therefore I'm a failure. That right there is the crux of the issue. And that transcends just about everything that I do. Way of thinking is there. For some things it's more prominent than others, but it's all there. This idea that I'm defective, incompetent, and therefore a failure. So how we're trying to fix it is there's a lot of memories, as I'm sure you could imagine, that are tied up with these sorts of thoughts. So the first thing we did was go through both prongs, workplace relationships, and through the main sort of memories that still hold some emotional pain, put them down on a list, took a session or two to do it. There was heaps. She even said, she's like, there's a lot there. I was like, well, what can I say? And so this is why it's going to be such a lengthy process, because we're going to have to sort of sift through most of these memories to try and, untie some of these negative thoughts. Is hopefully going to happen, though, is that it'll be discovered, and it already has started, that there's clusters of memories. So clusters of memories and experiences that sort of center on one central theme, a more specific theme, and it's the specific theme then that ties them all together is targeted, and then hopefully all those memories will sort of dissipate in time. So I hope this makes sense, because it's very complicated, and to be honest, I needed to sort of do this episode therapy session where a lot of this part happened. A lot of the groundwork was laid. But, me, HD, don't get anything done, and all this, what's the point? No one cares anyway. I haven't been able to do it. But today I have got a little bit of oomph, and that's why we're doing this episode. Try and get it out there. So just to recap, I hope that makes sense. There's two outcomes that I'm specifically looking for. One is the ability and the belief in myself to be able to get a new job that is meaningful. And two, the belief in myself that I can be in a relationship successfully moving forward. They're the two outcomes. I don't want to say one of the outcomes I want is a girl, but look, let's be honest, that's pretty much exactly what's going on. And the way that we're doing it, so there's two therapies. So everyone knows cognitive behavior therapy. I've rubbished CBT on this podcast before, which I shouldn't do, because CBT does help a lot of people, and there's a lot of research behind it that backs it as well. But at the time, for me, with such a negative view of the self that's so ingrained, I have a personality disorder, there's developmental disorders there with the autism stuff as well. CBT to surface level. It just sort of attacks the surface level thoughts, the specific thoughts, which is fine. And you sort of challenge that and be like, all right, I don't believe that. That's silly. But at the same time, it really goes to the heart of these personality issues. I was about to say deficiencies then, but that's definitely, that is not the language that I want to be using. But personality disorders, let's be honest, are quite deep, and it takes more than just a bit of surface level. Oh, that thought's a bit silly. Oh yeah, okay, I don't think that. It's like, come on, we've got to go deeper. So there's two therapies that are being used simultaneously, which in itself is a bit of a big deal, which again leads to how complex our presentation is. So one is internal family systems therapy, which I've spoken very briefly on here about before, IFS, and it's going to come up again big time when I do the retroactive policy episode. And the other one is EMDR. So EMDR is a newer sort of therapy. It's trauma-based, so it goes to the heart of trauma. You don't relive the trauma, but you sort of bring it back to mind and then change the thinking and the feeling surrounding it, but a different way than CBT. I've had a mind blank of what EMDR actually stands for, so excuse the clicking. Eye movement, desensitization area, and reprocessing. I always forget that part, reprocessing. So it's reprocessing these memories in a different way, and it's through lateral eye movements, which I think from memory, I need to look this up, but I will, and I'll be doing so on this very soon. I believe it's because it mimics REM sleep. So therapists will move their fingers from side to side. You follow it with your eyes while trying to keep the memory vivid in your mind, and then that's when all the magic happens, because I think it reprocesses in a way that REM sleep does when you sleep. That's why sleep's so important, because REM sort of sorts out those memories from the day, figures out what's important, what to hold on to, and maybe let go of. That's why sleep is partly so important, and this mimics that action as well. So, yeah, so that's EMDR. As I said, I'm going to do an episode on it, and internal family systems therapy. That's the one where there's all the different parts within that are trying to protect the self. So the 16-year-old, the loose cannon, my 16-year-old self is one part, which is where I found him through internal family therapy. IFS is great. It's going to come up again soon with the retroactive jealousy episode. So VR very much is a trauma-focused approach, and IFS really is as well. Do it from different angles, but put them together, huge, and that's what's going on with me. So I'm bringing my parts to, the 16-year-old self. I'm imagining what it was like, or what it is like, how it, and sort of looking at it from an objective point of view, controlling some of my behaviors and thoughts and the reasons why, which is all about protecting myself. There's no hard feelings towards the 16-year-old self, let me tell you. He has tried very hard to keep me out of social trouble, so I'm still popular with people. So there's no hard towards any of my parts, actually. But at the same time, they may be causing me to do behaviors that maybe are not very adaptive, and I don't really need to be doing. There's no real need. I just need to trust in myself. Another big sort of construct that we're going to be thinking on is this idea of trusting myself and trusting my judgment. So there's a lot in this. There is a lot in this. Both of those therapies on their own, heavy stuff. Put them together, heavy stuff. It's pretty we're basically doing therapy on the different parts of myself within. I know that sounds real trippy and weird, but it's like, okay, there's all these different parts. Each one I'm to the front, be like, righto, it's your turn, now do some EMDR. It's mental, man, but it's so cool. And it bloody works. It's working. Slowly but surely it's working. And it is, because my psychologist after this morning, how were you after the last session? And I said, well, big obsession I've got at the moment is me imagining myself failing at a new job. I think about it constantly. The OCD just goes on and on about it. Just this vivid image of me in a new role, either in transport or in mental health somewhere, and absolutely making a fool of myself. This sort of image I just keep replaying over and over again. It's so ingrained, this idea that it's not really, I'm not making it up. That's a look at the future. Future ain't pretty. But after last week's therapy, I actually found there were a few days where I didn't have such a strong sort of recall of this feeling associated. And I actually felt a lot more confident about my abilities for a couple of days, not too long, and then we sort of slipped to how I've been ordinarily. But there are a few days there where I was like, no, I can do this, I'm capable, because there is actually evidence to suggest that I'm capable. And I was brought to mind a lot more than the assumptions that I'm not. So, and again, I'm talking about conducts, the two outcomes. This is very much inner critic focused. Inner critic is a huge part. Imposter syndrome. These are the basic fundamental building blocks of so many people's illness and how it manifests themselves. And it is for me too. Inner critic, imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough. I'm defective. Therefore, I'm a failure. Not succeeding in the relationship world or the workplace world, or not feeling like it anyway, not feeling like successful, and all the sort of thoughts around that. This 16-year-old self driving me to do things I don't really want to do, but, we're just protecting ourselves. Like, there's a lot in this. There is a lot in this. There's a lot in my head, but I got it. This is the first time I think in therapy I've actually felt like, we've got this. I think we've got this. It's going to take time. Holy dooly, it is going to take time, but I think we've got this. And what's very interesting, I'm going to finish on this point. It's very interesting. So I was thinking of a memory today, and I could see inner child sitting at the table, my inner child. Now, I've done some inner child work on my own, and I have this very clear vision and feeling of my inner child, about 4 or 5 years old, the white blonde hair like I used to have, very clear. And today in therapy, I was talking about the past, and my therapist was saying, all right, let's go further back, for employment and see what's there. And then what I found was my inner child was sitting there not particularly happy. But it's the same inner child that I've sort of been able to connect with through my own endeavors. I thought that was pretty cool, because it's like, no, this is a central sort of theme here. Like this in it transcends everything, and that's pretty cool. And what I did was I noticed I held my inner child's hand and led my inner child away, and I just about burst in a tear. Whenever I get close even now I'm getting a bit, whenever I get close to my inner child and I'm like, because I got a guilt, because I feel like I've let my inner child down, there's, and then the other side feels very sorry for my inner child because of all the crap it's had to put up with. And partly my own doing, but then also because of these mental illnesses and stuff. And, there's a lot of emotion tied up with my inner child. And I think essentially it's all going to boil down to that. It's going to go right down to the inner child, fix that, then we'll build up and move forwards again. And that's sort of the process that's going on. So, but yeah, when I hold my inner child's hand, it's significant. And it is because I don't like touching people. I think it's an autistic thing. I don't like touching people. And I don't necessarily like showing affection to like stuff. Ugh, I don't know. Children bug me. And I never used to look at my inner child fondly. Never. I used to, sort of recoil at the vision and be like, look at me, Ben, what a loser, how lame. But through my own inner child work, I've learnt to befriend this inner child. And now the key is to really go back and lead my inner child forward and say, hey, trust I've got this, and then all the other parts, the 16-year-old's there too, and I can just say to everyone, look, trust me, I've got this steering wheel, the self, me, as I am. Let me be the driver. Just trust me, I've got a good plan for the future. I think we can do this. If I can get all my parts to sort of step aside and have faith in my ability to do that, then I think big changes will happen. But when one of my negative thoughts is that I can't trust my own judgment. I do not trust my judgment because so many times I've thought something, or at least I feel, and then the reality is actually quite different. And because I've got stuff like autism and BPD, that stuff does judgment. It does. So there's this huge problem I have. I've got a few of them. And this one is that I need to convince my parts, including my inner child, that I have judgment to make good, strong decisions that will help us moving forward. Trust me on this, but it's hard when I don't have this belief in my own judgment. So I've got to sort of fix that up probably before we dive back. There's a lot in this. There is a lot in this. I've just sort of paraphrased threshes there. So I'm sorry if it was a little bit all over the shop, but hopefully I covered most of the. There's a lot going on in therapy, and there's a lot to go. It's very complex. There's two therapies being utilised here at once, which isn't necessarily common, and I think that lends to the complexity of my presentation. But interesting, isn't it? Inner child stuff and parts and core beliefs, and it's EMDR in itself is such a cool. Look it up if you have time. It's a very, very interesting therapy. It's not like, it's not talk therapy. Well, it is sort of talk therapy, but not really. It's stuff. But there's a lot going on, a lot of different moving parts. We know this. If you've been listening to this show, there's a lot of different moving parts going on. And in therapy, as it probably should be, there's a lot of moving parts as well. All right, that's it for now. My voice is just about to go again. I've done a lot of talking today. I will see you next time on the Dysregulated podcast.